Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for part 2 of Professor Victor Singing Eagle's brilliant lectures on Native American literature here at Sisseton Wahpeton College. Spring 2025. And without any further ado, here is your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Professor Victor Singing Eagle. Yay! Welcome back. Now we are at part 2 of today's lecture here at Sisseton Wahpeton College, Tuesday, February 5th, 2025. That's yeah. Wow. 2025年. Anyway, no, focus. English. Right. So the last time I was bothering you, I was giving you all these wonderful vocabulary words. And I'm going to add more to it because this stuff is going to keep showing up over and over and over again in all our lectures. So I'm going to start highlighting them in these funny looking little yellow boxes in our lesson plans. The last time or a couple of times ago, we were looking at our book, which is called, where did I put that darn book? I think I left it in my office. Never mind. It is Daniel Heath Justice's book. And there is a section in there where he's talking about why indigenous lives matter, or literatures matter. That's the term. Man, I need more Pejuta Shapa. Hold on for a second. It's too early in the morning. The term that he first introduces us to is indigenous deficiency. I've just asked AI because I'm lazy, and AI always gives me a quick answer because oftentimes I stumble over my words, as you can already tell. AI says the best definition for indigenous deficiency is disempowering patterns of thought, language, and practice that represent Native peoples in terms of failure, highlighting the term failure, you see. Discourse that places responsibility for the problems with affected communities while overlooking the larger socioeconomic structures in which they are embedded. What does all that gobbledygook mean? Think of it in terms of Native American literature. Oftentimes, I think Sherman Alexie's really good at this, as is Tommy Orange. And yeah, both of those are, well, I haven't met Tommy Orange, but I did meet Sherman Alexie many times, and also Louise Erdrich. Oftentimes in their literature, they're going to dramatize indigenous deficiency, but they don't explain it very well. They show it. Indigenous deficiency is this idea where in the old days, back in the 80s and 90s, they used to call it blaming the victims. But we natives, we don't want to maintain a victim mentality. No. How do I explain this? Well, it's this ideal, you see, that the Washichu, the way they look at it, is it's our fault that we're poor. It's our fault that we keep doing dumb stuff. It's our fault that we're highest alcoholic rates. By the way, I watched, I mentioned this before, cousins and uncles and a grandfather pass away. They drank themselves to death, which is why I don't touch this stuff. Pejuta Shapa is the strongest stuff I'll ever drink. Now, back to this, though. This idea that it's our fault we're doing this. It's our fault we have highest rates of alcoholism, highest rates of suicide, and of all the different ethnic groups out there. We've got the lowest per capita income. There's a bunch of them. You name it, we're the worst. We're the bottom of the barrel a lot of times. By the way, let's talk about some good stuff about us, shall we? People are always messing with us and looking at us in terms of indigenous deficiency. Did you know that of all the ethnic groups in America and Canada, and probably Mexico too, I got to look that one up, we, Native males especially, are the number one people to enroll and serve our nation in the military. Yep, pretty much all the males in my family were all veterans. Never mind, I'm going to start bragging, but yeah, we're looking at the bright side. That's not deficiency, that's more of a cool thing, a legacy. All the guys in my family, we all served in the military. That's number one, is Native peoples. We serve in the military. We honor our nation and our people by doing that. Now, we're going to jump, which is closely related. We're going to go to Du Huawei, Harvey Dumars, or Dumars. He connects this, he uses the term generational trauma, the transmission of traumatic experiences from one generation to subsequent generation, resulting in lasting psychological, physiological, and social effects. What does that mean? Well, as we see in literature, you'll often see these native fellas and females do dumb stuff in the stories that we write. A lot of times our characters are doing stupid things. I'm trying to think of an example. There's a character named Victor in Sherman Alexi's books, and he's always doing stupid things. And we don't know why, because his father's absent. So, according to Harvey Dumars, I think this is, I hope I'm not misquoting him, but he says that a lot of times something that happened to our grandfathers or great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers gets written into our DNA, and it shows up in a lot of, even if we never met them, it's written into our DNA. Something terrible has happened, usually caused by the colonizers. And because of that, we often get stuck in this hamster wheel where we keep going around and around doing the same terrible things, making the same goofy mistakes. How are we doing on time? Let me go over here and have a look. 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Oh, goody. Now, I'm going to mess with item C for a second. This is something that is new for us, and I need to read from a book, which means I got to hold this microphone, put my glasses on, and read. And hold, let's see if we can do this. This is from Old Shirts and New Skins by Sherman Alexie. I think it was written way back in like 1990 or 91. And a fella named Adrian Louis, who lived on Pine Ridge, but he's actually a Paiute. He wrote the preface for this Sherman Alexie book. Again, it's called Old Shirts and New Skins. University of California, Los Angeles Press. Let me quit messing around and read. And I'm probably going to run out of space and times, which means I'm going to stop it after I read this and look at this cultural illiteracy thing for a second. Here we go. This is a quote. Again, Adrian Louis is quoting an article written by Andy Rooney. Remember that goofy dude from 60 Minutes? Never mind, I could just read.
While American Indians have a grand past, their impact on the culture of the world has been slight. There are no great American Indian novels, no poetry, no memorable music. Their totem pole does not rank with the statuary of Greece, and there is no American Indian art, except for some good craftwork in wool, pottery, and silver.
Not long ago, Andy Rooney, the aging, self-appointed humorist of the television program 60 Minutes, wrote these deprecating and racist words in his nationally syndicated column. While the words from this potato-headed pontiff may seem off the wall and innocuous to some, they drew the ire of American Indian people across the country. Perhaps Rooney in the steel concrete valleys of Manhattan had never heard of the names of the brilliant Indian poets who are writing today, like Joy Harjo, Lucy Tapahanso, and Simon Ortiz. I don't think I could name but a few Irish American poets, but I find it hard to believe he has never heard of novelists Darcy McNichol, N. Scott Momaday, James Welch and Louise Erdrich and so on. The point I want to make of this is that Indian people are still largely an invisible race. For most Americans, we are perceived to be extinct or something distant and related to the sometimes romantic, sometimes halting caricatures on the silver screen. The truth is, sadly, that very few of our Indian writers speak to the condition of the majority of our Indian people. There is only a very small handful of writers who speak directly for those Indians, living in Indian communities on Indian land, the enrolled members of federally recognized tribes. It is not my intent here to replicate the litany of oppressed whining that we often fall into, but to make concrete who and what we are as Indians. We are, for the most part, a disenfranchised people whose lands, culture, and very voices have been stolen, used, and abused. A good many of us are as dependent now on federal handouts for our very survival as we were when we were first caged in reservations in the late 19th century. We seem to burn furiously towards our own self destruction, and yet we survive. We will always survive. That's enough! I shouldn't drop that, but yeah, that's an old book. But I gotta stop because I'm already into like 11 freaking minutes. I'm gonna stop it there, and we're gonna get back to this in the next video. Talk to you soon.